Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to close out this week of sounds from my inbox with a band that sounds pretty interesting. The email I got says this band just released a trio of singles. They have influences from rock, jazz, fusion, progressive, and noise, and they're from the Mexican metal scene, sorry. So that sounds pretty interesting. Let's go ahead and get into this one. The band is called Parazit. And I don't know, I'm ready for this. That's a lot of experimental, avant-garde, progressive. I mean, that's just a lot of really interesting genres to mix into one. So let's go. Parazit's Neomoira. Ooh. Dude, that drumming? We ain't seen the drummer yet, but that's some insane little stuff. Loving that bass tone. Gorgeous melody here. Ooh. Sitting on some tense stuff right now. Alright, we're building up to something. Gotta show the dog. Dude, that bass line was just funky. Dang, what just happened with the time? That was... Let's bring this back. It feels like a slight variation from the last time we had this. Oh! Golly, that finale was clean. Oh. Alright. Knowing some of you guys out here, you just love that. Yeah, where do I even start? I loved it, that's for sure. I don't know who has heard of Parazit before, but I I would wager that if a lot of people had, I probably would have heard about this on the couple of Animals as Leaders tracks that we've checked out. I'm pretty sure these guys would have popped up. So I don't. I'm gonna wager is new a new band for a lot of you. So I'm pretty happy about that. I'm also happy that they're just so freaking contagious in their groove, like every bit of it. Um, yeah, groove, technicality, and beauty. These guys got all three. This is kind of the stuff I wanted to see when we checked out Animals as Leaders. Was just sometimes to really rein it back and put some strong melody and like story writing in there. Um, that was really my main criticism when we checked out, especially CAFO. It was all technicality all the time, and it's an excellent display, but it's missing a strong aspect of music writing that I would say, and that's the story part, the narrative. Um, really letting your song breathe and providing some moments to not only provide context to the technical aspects, um, but just also showcasing some of the beauty. And obviously, not every song needs to have that. Sometimes your narrative is about, grittiness, and you don't want any beauty in it, and that's fine as well. But there were moments of Kfo that I thought we're not talking about Kfo, okay? Let's get back to Parazit. Um, so they came out real strong, right? There was a really nice, really beautiful chordal work going on in the guitars, but also with a hint of technicality from a visual standpoint. It didn't sound extremely complex, but when you saw how much work was being done on the neck, um, yeah, there's a lot of movement going on, and the fact that this dude can just bust it out with like that extreme precision will always fascinate me, no matter how many times I see it. Just jumping up from the bottom, top of the neck, and creating, running from starting from like finger runs and going into chord shapes on the neck. It's just fascinating that they can just jump between those two so quickly. Um, but it also sounds beautiful and effortless, and I think that's one of my favorite things to see is when it doesn't sound difficult, but it is, especially when you see it. um, I think basically making the impossible look possible is just extremely fascinating to me, and the guitarist was just doing that beautiful playing and making the impossible possible. Now, I do really want to point out the drummer. I noticed they weren't shown visually in the video. I'm not really sure what happened there. It could have, various reasons. Um, but it is a trio according to the email I got. So I'm going to assume the drummer is a real drummer. It's not programmed. They just weren't available for the video for whatever reason. But the drum work was phenomenal. Some of those little runs just thrown into the middle of, a 4-beat phrase just to add a little bit of ornamentation, and a lot of it just, it was like little nuances that you probably wouldn't really even hear unless you really honed in. Ghost notes or like little cymbal taps and stuff like that. Just like a tap it once and then bring it back to the toms or whatever you're working on, and it's so light, but it adds so much character to the drum work. It's just, yeah, man. And we did drum cam week, and we checked out stuff like Bayard and uh, Danny. Is that his name? The dude from Tool. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Um, and I really got into a habit of trying to visualize what drummers are doing. Because it doesn't necessarily need to sound intricate to be difficult. Um, Sort of like what we just talked about with the guitar, but in a different manner, just because I'm not too familiar with drum playing. Just because there's not a lot of sounds coming through doesn't mean that there's not a lot of body work. Maybe you're crossing your arms, hitting things on opposite sides and stuff like that. And it's really more of a spatial thing, whereas, with wind instruments, string instruments, it's all in your hands, right? On a guitar, you have your 20 frets, and that's really all the movement your left hand does. It's right there in front of you. Whereas a drum kit, it surrounds you. It's at least in the the 180 degrees in front of you, um, and you're trying to make as much sound with the four limbs you have. So yeah, I would love to see a drum playthrough of this, but also I think I did a pretty good job sort of visualizing what I was hearing, and it looks complex to me. So once again, making the complex sound easy and effortless. Just kind of going through this whole band. That's just like a string that ties this entire song together. Um, and the bassist was playing some really nice, basically bass lines, right? Nothing really too intricate, but really holding down the lower end, especially since the guitarist was moving all over the place, occasionally coming to some lower notes, but really sitting in the mid to high end as far as tone was. So the bass is really holding together the low tones of the song. And then we get a nice little build up area, about 4 bars, I'd say. We have some really nice, beautiful guitar work that ends in some really tense tones and chords. And that runs us into what I would call the funky part, where the bass took spotlight and just tore it up with some slapping and popping. Golly, that was just a sight to see. And that is one of the things that sounds difficult and looks difficult. Like, that bassist is putting a lot of sound into a very small space, just tearing it up. And then when you watch him, and his left hand's just going all over the neck, muting certain things, holding other ones, letting some strings be open, it's just fascinating. Um, the only thing I'd say that was a bit unfortunate is that the song looped in on itself. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but there's two ideas and they just go back and forth. I think if we had done sort of the more beautiful, serene part and then the funky part and then brought it back to the beautiful and serene and ended it there, I think that would have been a little bit better in the storytelling wise. However, I do like that they went back to the funkiness, not necessarily for it itself, but because it led into the outro, which I loved. I don't know if you got that. I had quite a reaction to that. I'm usually pretty stoic about this music, really more inside my head rather than my emotions when I'm listening to this stuff. But that ending blew me away. The just really punchy stops, the syncopation and the timing required to get everybody on the same page for those really sharp attacks, and short rhythms and phrasing. It was just, it was just a really nice way to sort of merge both of the ideas, the really punchy, funky stuff, and then a little bit of the beauty, kind of roll it all into one, and allowing a lot of breath and breathing that wasn't really present throughout. The beauty part definitely had some more space in it than the funk. The funk was just about filling as much space as you can with that fat bass tone. The beauty definitely had a little bit more breathing to it, but it was still kind of filled up with a lot of the guitar work. The guitars really didn't do too much resting and allowing the song to breathe, and even in the moments it did, the drum was just throwing some really nasty patterns down. So this was really a chance to have these really short start stop sections, to have a little bit of breathing and gaps in a song that is otherwise primarily filled with sound. And I think it does a really good job of providing a little bit of a period or an exclamation mark, however you want to look at that, to the end of the song by having some heavy contrast, right? Just those really short stops and then the short phrasing is, it utilizes a lot of the ideas we had seen in previous sections while also being very unique on its own and providing a sound that we had not heard yet. Definitely, finishing up the song strong. Just phenomenal work all over the place. I would love to really dig into some of the chordal stuff that's going on. I'd wager there's some very interesting things I've mentioned before that listening for notes and chords is not really my strong suit. I don't have perfect pitch or anything like that. If I sit in front of a keyboard, I can usually get around the right note, and then I can, slowly work into it until I find what note it is if I'm trying to transpose a piece. But as far as chords go, I can kind of feel out some chord modes, but for the most part, that's just not something I can hear. I don't. I did a lot of training for this when I was being educated on music and music theory and stuff like that. But it was difficult for me then. It's something that just never really stuck. So it is something you can learn, but it's something that my body does not want to learn. But I do hear some really interesting note relationships going on, especially in the pre-funk situation there, where we entered into a bit of the tension in the chords and notes in the guitar work. And I would wager that there's actually some more interesting things there than just, playing a four chord and using the tension from that that's going to allow us to redirect to something a little bit more tonic, a little bit more resolution. Um, I think there's some really interesting things going on. I think these guys are very good composers. They've very good. Yeah, they're just very good. Um, but yeah, I think there's some really interesting things going on, and I would love to get my hands on some sheet music to see exactly what kind of chord progressions we're looking at. Specifically, like I said, in that pre-funk situation. Um, it's definitely a lot more color than your typical, more classical chords are providing, and I'd love to see what they're working with. So yeah, that's Parazit's Neomoira. They have two other singles that they've released. What was it? Oh, Zero to Me and Asleep Reason Horror. So if you're interested in these guys, oh, they're not new. According to this, their first one was from 2012, and then they put out a 2015, 2017, and 2018 albums. And then I guess these are some singles for their new album, or maybe this is just a group of. That's pretty common these days. A lot of people are just putting out singles that don't end up on, an EP or an LP. But yes. Oh, okay. So this is interesting. This song is about describing the evolution of civilizations from primitive times to modern times. As for music, the theme is inspired by the merger of contemporary jazz with Middle Eastern music, while in the rhythmic, there are elements of modern Afro music. All that mixed with the sound we're handling with influences of different metal subgenres. Yeah, I can't say I got any of that contemporary jazz meets Middle East. I can kind of hear where they're coming from in retrospect, but I did not pick that up on a first listen. However, it's really cool that that's the angle they came from. I can't really say I've had too many bands that have decided to mix jazz and Middle Eastern music, so yeah. Definitely a band I'm going to be keeping my eye on, though. As usual with these bands from that have contacted me, I'm going to put information in the description for them if you're interested in hitting up probably their Bandcamp or their website if you want to know more about them or just want to have a quick link to get to other music from them. I will definitely provide that. All right, those are my thoughts, though. You guys hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you thought of Parazit's Neomoira. Let me know if you enjoyed it, if you didn't enjoy it, if you had heard of these before, or if you have not heard of these guys before. Like I said, I kind of expected that if these guys were well known, they would have probably popped up in the comments for the Animals as Leaders, because I get a very strong Animals as. I think it's just like the super rhythmic, super complex instrumental trio that could really describe either band. So I'm kind of hoping this is a new one for a lot of people. And yeah, that wraps this one up. If you guys want, you can hit up the description box. Like I said, there's going to be links for these guys in there, as well as my links adjacent to the channel, such as for the Patreon and a Discord. If you could like, subscribe, ring the bell, they help out the channel immensely. I will be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC, with a special selection, which are always good. You guys are always providing me really cool things to react to, so I'm excited for that. Sunday will be the same thing, and then Monday starts special selection week. So we're gonna get 9 special selections in a row this weekend, next week, and the weekend after. All right, until next time, you guys stay safe out there, keep being awesome, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.